And so yeah, so you all, tonight's guest is Kevette Burwell, and I'll turn it over to you so you can tell them who you are and then take us on a journey down memory lane.
Okay, great. So I am Kevette Burwell. I'm born and raised in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Went to the Duke Ellington School of the Arts for vocal music, then went on to University of Maryland, studied voice. Eventually, ended up dropping out early and eventually going back to finish my undergrad and get 2 master's degrees. All of that while, doing music ministry, being married, having 2 young children. And it was an interesting time. When I look back over it now, it's just like, what in the world was I thinking? And how in the world did I do it? I decided to go back to school, and then a month into it, found out I was pregnant with my son.
Wow.
And so I was just like, okay, how are we going to do this? And I was going to Strayer at the time, so I had to go into the school at the time to take my. And then after Trey was born, I had to figure out how I was going to do this with a baby and an 8-year-old. And
wow.
So, my aunt was going to the University of Maryland University College, and she said, "Oh no, you can go to University of Maryland University College and be online anytime." Oh, I said, "Oh, that's what I need." I need to have to be in front of a computer at any specific time. I need to be able to work when I have free time. And so I finished. I ended up transferring to University of Maryland University College, finished my undergrad degree, and then went on to get my master's in human resource management, and then a second master's in business administration. So, yeah, so I am currently still in the workforce. I'm working for the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and I am a supervisory ethics specialist. And so I tell people when they ask me, what do you do? I say, I keep NIH employees out of jail and NIH out of the news. So it's an interesting job, ever changing. I'm still, doing music, and so I think you want me to go into when the trauma started, right?
So you and at NIH, are you doing HR now?
Well, ethics was a part of HR, and then they moved it out of HR. So no, I'm not in HR.
Okay. Yes, yeah. So you've gotten us through, you're developing your life, you're starting your life as a young woman, a mom, and you've got 2 children, married, and your life. And
yeah, we were living life and raising our kids, and my kids were 8 years apart. And so when I first had Trey, I was just like, what in the world was I thinking? Because I had Melanie already, she can run her own bath. She was becoming a little independent person. And now I got this little baby. We managed and we started, we built a home and moved into our home, got our kids, got Melanie through college, Trey through high school and 1 year of college. And Trey decided he wanted to pursue his music. And so we backed him 100%. He was very diligent in his work. His work ethic was so amazing as far as, him producing music and writing music and recording music. Every Friday night, he was in the studio. Every Friday night in the studio, and not like working on a song, completing songs. So we did that. And then of course, here comes the first trauma of our lives. And a lot of people think it started with my husband, but it actually started with my nephew. In August 2019, my nephew tragically lost his life in a car accident. So my oldest sister, Pam, her son passed away. So that was very traumatic for our like kind of immediate family. And so we were dealing with that. And then October 2019, my husband passed away. And so 2 months later, my husband is gone. And that kind of shook everything that shook everything. And of course, it was um, something that was very unexpected. I remember it was a day that Trey was going to perform, and Bobby was managing Trey. So Bobby was on his way with Trey. For some reason, for this particular day, um, Trey said he gave him everything. Usually Bobby would carry everything for him, his water, his whatever he needed, he'd catch, do it all for him. But this particular day, Bobby gave him everything and said, okay, you go and I'm going to meet you there. He said, and he told him the route he was going. He said, I'm going to go out Landover Road, so you go out Landover Road. And I said, well, I thought y'all were riding together. And he said, no, I'm going to go before him. So on his way, he had a medical emergency and a small accident. But on Trey's way to the event, he saw Bobby's car, and his friend said, hey, that's your dad's car. And Trey's like, no, that's not his car. My dad should be at the venue. But we, as a family, and my kids probably hated me for it, but we had to find my friends on our phones. And I said, it's not so that I could stalk y'all. It's just so if anything happens, I can find you. I'll know where, to go. And Trey looked on his find my friends, and his dad, that was indeed his dad's car. And so
Pause for a second, Kevette, because I want people to understand how close your husband and Trey was, right? They were super close. Your husband also was in the music industry,
yes,
way, right?
yes. Bobby was, he was a minister of music, but he also managed artists. He was for a little while, he did radio, producing and radio.
Wow.
And so he was very much involved in Trey's career and directing his career. And not long before then, they had gone down to Miami and was recording some music down there. So he was very much involved. They were very, very, very close. Most fathers and sons are, but they were very, very close. And so, this particular day, that's why I was just like, y'all are not riding together. That was just that was just something that they didn't do. But I mean, but they they usually rode together to these venues. So for this particular day, Bobby said they were going to ride in a different car.
Right? Or was he dealing with? He wasn't, like, he was still doing stuff. He was on his way to a venue, right?
On his way to a venue. Now, prior to this particular day, a couple of years before, he was diagnosed with congestive heart failure.
Okay.
But he was on medication for it. Everything was going well.
Right.
But probably maybe a week before, he started having some symptoms again. So he had been going back and forth to the cardiologist. And so this particular day, as I mentioned, Trey rode by, and it was indeed his father's car. And he spoke to the police, and the police said he had a medical emergency and told him which hospital they took him to. And he called me and he said, Mom, Dad, the police said they had a medical emergency and he's at this hospital. And I said, okay, Trey, go to your venue. I'm going to the hospital. And I got to the hospital probably about 2 minutes before I got to the hospital called me. And they were like, your husband is here. I'm like, I'm 2 minutes from you. I'm on my way. When the person met me in the hallway, I was like, this can't be good. They're meeting me in the hallway. And so, meantime, I was in Bethesda at work. So on my way there, I had called my family and I called my daughter and I said, there was a medical emergency. Let me go to the hospital and see what's going on. And then I'll let you guys know what's going on. When I got to the hospital, the doctor was like, how did he put it? He said, his prognosis is not good. And mind you, I didn't know anything about what was going on.
Right.
And so I said, wait a minute, hold it. Tell me what, you don't know. He had a heart attack. And I said, no, this is my first time hearing this. And he said, well, we've been working on him for 2 hours. Excuse me, for 2 hours you've been working on him? And I just heard from you guys 2 minutes ago. And so I said, I need to see him. And they let me see him. They had revived, he had coded, I think he coded maybe once or twice, but they had revived him. And so when I got to him, he was alive, and I was able to speak to him and just say, I just said, I love you, fight, you know. And then they said, we're going to move him. And at this point, I go out and I call the family now. Now you guys need to come to the hospital. And so while I was out, they said, we're getting ready to move him. So they moved him. And I never saw him alive again. By the time, I got to where they were moving him, and we were sitting just kind of waiting around. And so it's very interesting because my family, at this point, like everybody was there. And I heard a code blue or something like that, some code. And in my mind, I said that was Bobby. And then they were like, Burwell family, come in this room. And my aunt was there, and I looked at my aunt. I said, this is where they give you the bad news. And she said, yeah. And so the doctor came in, and he, said that Bobby had passed away. And at first you have to kind of be like, what just happened? What in the world just happened? And so, I think he thought I was going to kirk out. And I've never been the type of person to lose control in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But what I knew I needed to do was to see him. And I just said, I need to see him. And he was just like, calm down. I said, sir, I'm calm. I need to see him.
Right.
And so, went and, saw him, and, he was gone. And I literally felt his body go from warm to cold. And, I cried, and I cried till I didn't have any more tears to cry. And, at this point, like, a lot of people are, coming up. And I looked at one of my good friends, Stephen Hurd, and I looked at him and I said, I don't want to be in this position. Because with all that, I got all that's going on with, I just didn't want to be in the position that I was in. But, when I look back over things, and when I looked at even the day after it all, I had to say to myself, first you start to ask the questions like, why? Why did this happen?
Right.
And why am I going through this? And I asked the question, why not you? Who are you that you should not be affected by trials, by tribulations, by things? Who are you? And so my thought process at the time was, okay, now I got to start dealing with the business of laying my husband to rest. And what prepared me for it was helping my sister lay her
With your nephew.
son to rest. 2 months prior, helping my sister lay her son to rest. And so I kind of was fresh with the process of doing all of that. So I had to go and get Bobby's car out of the tow place. It was just a lot going on. And so that was the beginning. So as I said, people think it was the death of my husband, but the beginning of it all was the death of my nephew. And so we lost my nephew in August, lost Bobby in October. And so we began to,
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Did Bobby call the ambulance himself, or do you all even know how he?
The way I believe it happened, in looking at the police report, I think people, he had an accident because he was unconscious. So I think people around called the police and called the ambulance.
Okay.
And so, and when looking at the police report also, I think he actually coded on the scene. And so, he definitely didn't call. I think that the people who saw the accident or saw him slumped over or whatever, they called.
Okay.
So, I believe, you know, we were just all in shock. We were just really all in shock. But my personality and my character is I gotta start moving. Got to start moving, doing things. What do I need to do? What needs to happen? How do I comfort my daughter and my son? They lost their father, you know, and they were pretty strong. Actually, they were actually very pretty strong. They, you know, um, they may have gotten that from their mother. I don't know, but they were actually pretty strong. And so, you know, we kind of moved life on. And, you know, after it was all said and done, I just kind of explained to them, you know, it's just us now. So we just kind of got to, you know, move life on. And so, you know, I tell people this all the time, you know, every day I just put my feet on the ground and I keep moving because life keeps moving. I can't slow down. I can't get um, uh, stuck, so to speak. So I have to move life forward. And one of the things that I did to help me um, move forward, well, first and foremost is my faith in God. And so I just believe that God had me, God carried me, God allowed me to have the strength to make it through. But one of the other things that I started doing in the process was walking. And so in walking, that was very therapeutic for me. It helped me to clear my mind. It helped me actually think about things as I was walking. Even now when I walk, I'm still, you know, processing life as I'm walking the hills and valleys of my neighborhood. um, and so, yeah, so we kind of moved on. And and then what was unbeknownst to me was that not even quite a year later, my son would be gone. And so my son was out one night, and he stayed out that night. And I spoke to him that morning, and he said, I'm on my way home. And I said, okay, I'll meet you at home because I think I had a hair appointment or something. Well, meantime, between time, my daughter lets me know she's expecting. And so on his way home, he also spoke to my daughter, and she wanted him to stop and get her some breakfast. But I said, no, you go home. I'll stop and I'll get everybody some breakfast. But by the time I got home, he wasn't here. And so my daughter and I are like, Trey should be home by now. And my daughter's like, Mom, Trey should be here by now. So I started calling him, and no answer, goes straight to voicemail. And so this went on for a little while. I got in my car, started looking around for him. And after a while, you know, I didn't even contact any of my family right away. I just was like, let me call the police, call hospitals, call anywhere I know, anybody I know, call his friends. My daughter got in touch with his friends. And one of his friends called his friend at the time, and she was on the phone with him. And I guess she had fallen asleep, and when she woke up to a crash. And in my mind, I was like, so when were you going to tell anybody about that? So now I'm trying to figure out where this crash occurred. I'm trying to figure out, I'm calling the police saying, you know, here's where my friends helped also. I knew where his phone last pinged. And so because I knew where his phone last pinged, I knew the route he was coming home. And so I called the police and said he would have been coming down Suitland Parkway. They were like, we had no contact with that kind of car or that color car, that person had no. I called the police many times that weekend. And I even went on Suitland Parkway looking for any kind of crash or anything that weekend, but I didn't see anything. And so, of course, that was a Saturday, I think. It was a Saturday. So by Saturday evening now, I have to get my family involved. I'm like, I can't find Trey. And so now everybody's rushing to my house. They're here. I called the police, did a missing persons report. And so Monday, I had worked it out with, I said, we're going to go to Suitland Parkway, and we are going to look. And all of his friends, a whole bunch of his friends met me here at my house. I had pastors meet me here at my house, just a whole bunch of people. And I gave them all my phone number. Go, I don't care what part of Suitland Parkway you look down in the hills and the valleys or whatever, and see if you can find his car. And so that's what we did. We went out to Suitland Parkway and we looked for him. And my sister's pastor, he said the Lord told him to look in this particular spot. And that's where his car was. That's where we found the car. My sister called me and she said, we found him. We found him. And so um, my sister was rightfully so. She was upset, but she was like, we found the car. We found the car. And I said, Pam, you need to tell me where you are. I was on a different part of Suitland Parkway. So she told me where she was. And when I got there, I had called one of his friends and said that I believe we found the car. And so everybody was coming to this spot. But they wouldn't let me go down and look at the car. Now, I'm just like, I'm okay, because here's the thing. I trust God enough to trust whatever his plan was. One of my very best friend came over Saturday night, and when she left, I said this to her. I didn't tell anybody this. I said this to her. I said to God, if he took him, I'm okay. I just need to find him. And she said, no, don't say that. Don't say that. I said, I'm saying it. I just need to find him. And so God granted my prayer, and he allowed us to find him. And when I called the police that day, I said, I've been calling you guys all weekend looking for my son. I'm now out here with a bunch of people, and we found him. And I said,
I'm not the police.
Not the police. Like I said, my sister was riding with her pastor, and her pastor said the Lord told him to stop at this particular place. And he went down the hill, and there the car was.
And so your baby had been in that car for what, like?
For almost 48 hours, for 2 days. So, well, Saturday, Sunday, and we found him Monday morning. And so it was a very surreal scene. But I said to the police when they got there again, I've been calling out all weekend. I said, but I'm gonna stay right here until you confirm whether he's dead or not. And so it took them a while, and they confirmed he was gone. And then I said, okay. But one of the things that I did, I am a worshiper by nature, and the Bible says, "In all things, give thanks." And so, even though I believed, when I got to the scene, I was praying, and I was like, Lord, even if there's no blood and no breath in his body, you're able to bring breath back to his body. But even if you don't, it's not because you can't. It's not because you can't. And so one of the things I did while I was waiting for them to confirm is I sat in the car with Bishop Brownlee, and I just began to worship. I just began to sing my song. That there was my daughter had my grandson by then, so he was probably he was about going on 2 months. But one of the things I would do with him all the time is do a worship medley. I'd sing to him and do a worship medley. I began to sing that worship medley in the car, waiting on them. I didn't know anything else to do. I didn't know anything else to do but to worship God. And so my strength and it comes from my faith in God, my belief that God does all things well, and that all things do indeed work together for our good. Good, bad, or indifferent, it all works together for our good. And, I remember having a conversation with God not long after that. And I said, Lord, you broke my heart with this one. You really broke my heart with this one. And I was reminded, I sing with a group called Hillside Singers, and we were on our way to New York. And I was talking to one of the singers. We were talking about the whole incident of Trey's passing. And I said that line to her. I said, God, I said to God, you broke my heart this time. But then it came to me, and I believe this was the Holy Spirit. Maybe the Lord was sparing my heart from something. And I don't know why Trey only had 21 years. I'm grateful to God for the 21 years that he allowed us to have Trey in our lives. Trey did so much in his 21 years. His music was his thing. He still has music that has not been put out yet.
Wow.
That one of his managers, he still has the music, and I still have music um, that he had. But that you know those that he did so much in his 21 years. Even though this is what I believe. I believe that inherently we as because we are mind, bodies, we're spirit, I believe that our spirit, not us physically, not our soul, our spirit. I don't have no proof of this nowhere. No scripture to back it up, nothing. Just keep that. I believe that our spirit inherently knows how long we have here on earth. Our soul, our mind, we don't know. We don't have the consciousness to know, but I think our spirit does. I've had several friends who had short lives, who was always running to do something, always rushing to do something, always had to accomplish something. Trey was one of those souls. He was always doing, always had to get it done. Mom, I gotta go in the studio. Mom, can you send me money so I can go in the studio? I need to record these songs. Do. And I just believe inherently that our spirits know how long we have. And so for those souls who have a shorter time frame or a shorter life, I believe they rush to get their purpose accomplished in life. And so, those are, I believe over the last, it's Bobby, in this October, be 5 years, Bobby be gone, and 4, the Trey will be gone. But my family has been through so much, and I thank God for the strength of my entire family. But my mother and my sisters, like I said, my oldest sister lost her son in August of 2019. I lost my son in October 2020. My sister, that's next to me, the middle sister, she lost her daughter in 2023, June 2023. So we all have lost a child. And I just was just like, there's something very like surreal about all of
it. It really is.
and I have no answer for it. I have no answer. I've asked. I'm like, God, what in the world? But we are all women of faith. We all believe God in his sovereignty and that he can do exactly what he wants to do. We hurt here on earth, but I believe that our loved ones, Trey, my nephew Delonte, my niece Kiara, I believe that they are with Jesus. They are in the arms of Jesus. And I believe God can take much better care of them than we could here on earth. And so I trust that, as I said, God is sovereign. He can do whatever he wants to do. And I believe that for whatever reason, he knew that we could handle it. We wouldn't, as I always say, we wouldn't go and be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But he knew that our faith would sustain us and that our love, our genuine love for each other would help us. So we all have a like experience and we lean on each other. And listen, grief has no time frame at all. And, it could be at any moment that the waterworks will start with me. There's some days I can listen to Trey's music and some days I can't. And so, but I still lean and depend on Jesus. And like I said, every day I put 2 feet on the ground and I keep my life moving. I got, a few things in the works now. Now I'm working on my own project. And I'm producing a concert that I've been doing, right before Bobby passed. I did a concert and I titled it Songs from the Heart. And it was just my concept was to put together an all women, all girl group of women that I believe really have amazing gifts, but they're not, in the limelight. They are not the people, the most popular people in the area. And Trey was my musical director, and Bobby played the organ. Melanie did spoken word. Melanie's a very gifted writer and actress and some, you know, just a playwright and all of that. And so she did something. So our whole family kind of did something. And then, of course, Bobby passed. And so my concept was to do this concert, do a few more in this series of concerts. But of course, I had to put that on the back burner after Bobby passed and after Trey passed. Well, last year I picked it back up. We did Songs from the Heart, and we did All Things Hawkins. So we did all music by Walter Hawkins, Edwin Hawkins, the Hawkins family. It was, yeah, it was absolutely, it was amazing, actually. It was an amazing concert. So this year we're doing All Things Smallwood. So last year when I decided we would do All Things Smallwood, I had no idea there would be so many Richard Smallwood tributes this year. There have been so many because he turned 75 this year. And so many people are doing tributes. Well, we're doing one in September. So I'm doing that. I am, as I said, working on my own project. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of this year. And so I am, you know, still working, still, you know, and I'm enjoying my grandson.
Yeah.
He is absolutely a joy. And, you know, when you look at the tragedy of, you know, losing, you know, my husband, losing my son, losing my nephew, losing my niece, in the middle of all of this also, my daughter lost her baby's daddy. And so it's just been a whirlwind of stuff. So my grandson's father passed away. Well, he passed away also. So, but when I look at all of this and then I look at my grandson's face, I say, okay, God, you sent me some joy. You sent me some joy in all of this, because Jaziel is an absolute joy. And every time I look at him, I'm like, I love that little boy.
Good. He is so good. Oh man, I'm I'm at a loss for words for the first time on Trauma to Triumph. I am at a loss for words because I just can't imagine what you've gone through. But even a step further than that, your strength and the way you stretch your faith is just something I would love for the entire universe to see and experience. I felt, I don't know, I felt something come over me when you were talking to me about how calm you were. And when you had said something, you said, and this is after I think Bobby passed, I think you said something like, who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I to think that tragedy shouldn't hit my life?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I?
Yeah.
And when you said that, when I went through losing, I had a first cousin who was raised by my brother, and wasn't ill or anything like that. I didn't hear from him, and we didn't hear from him like 2 days, and we were like check on him because he was a bachelor and he was dead on his bedroom last year, right? And so I was talking to one of my girlfriends about, like, you know, like, I got hit with so much stuff. I lost my job. I lost my brother. My marriage went into shambles. And like, what? She said, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you to think that you are owed anything other than you woke up again today?
Listen,
That's it.
We still see, so I look at life as, you know, I'm still here, so I still have purpose. So I have to try to fulfill that purpose. And in doing so, I glorify God, I honor God, and still moving my life forward, still trying to fulfill what purpose He has for me here on earth. I'm still here. I still got things to accomplish. I still have things to do. And so, as I mentioned, you know, there are times when the days are like, okay, the waterworks are coming, you know. I literally relive those 2 days almost every day. The day Bobby passed and the day that Trey passed. I literally relive those days almost every single day. But it just depends on how it affects me that that particular, because there are plenty of days when I'm just like, okay, why is my baby not here? Because I can kind of reconcile, Bobby's death because he was sick. I can kind of reconcile that. I cannot reconcile in my son's death. But again, I trust God. I believe God. I believe that God, even in his death, had purpose in Trey's death. I believe I said this at his funeral. If like one of his friends through his death comes to know God, comes to experience God, then okay. Okay.
I think I remember you saying that because he had tons of friends there. I
Yes.
remember that. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I wish I could bottle you up and just put you in every household. I do. I do. And I'm so grateful for a woman like you. I'm glad to
Appreciate that.
grateful for your yes for being on my platform tonight. I truly believe that um, I truly believe that tonight's episode is really going to help so many people because there is no other reason why you came to my mind
Mm.
randomly like this. Like I said, all last month I did all men.
Mm-hmm.
I was building the calendar for this month, and God said, you need to reach out to, well, what he said was Bobby's wife. You need to reach out to Bobby's wife. The world needs to hear from her because there are so many people now dealing with the loss of a loved one. It's
Yeah,
so happening out here now with that.
it is.
And I need for some people to really, really get help through a story like
Mm.
yours. And so thank you.
You are very welcome. You are very welcome. I do see I see a lot of parents losing children.
I know.
I just think it's absolutely crazy to me. And, the three young men who died on Pennsylvania Avenue a few weeks ago, they went to school with Trey. They played football with Trey. And that really touched me. And I was really affected by that. But, whoever I can, talk to or try to encourage them or give them strength or whatever, I try to do that. There was a young lady who lost her husband in my choir, and the Lord said, go talk to her. And I went and talked to her, and I just, tried to encourage her, like you got to keep moving. Yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. We lost our husbands. It's terrible. Um, but again, we still have purpose. We are still
Still
here.
here.
We still have purpose, and so we can't. I don't want people to. I don't want to. I don't want to devalue grief at all, because again, grief. There's no time. There's no time frame for grief, and people grieve in many different ways, and people um, uh, have to go through their own process of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want people to get stuck in it. Because once you get stuck in grief, you get stuck in life. You don't move your life forward. You don't move, especially if you have people that depend on you. If you've lost, for instance, if you have young children that depend on you, you can't get stuck in your grief. Grieve, absolutely grieve. And I used to tell people this all the time. As the wave of grief comes, I ride the wave, and then when it's over, it's over. But I ride the wave. I let my grief have its process, and then I get myself together. I dry my eyes, and I keep my life
Keep your
moving.
life moving. Have you been asked to speak for anything like any grief, anything like grief support groups or anything like that?
No,
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 nothing
I
yet.
don't. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. I'm wondering because I just know your story would just help so many people, so many people. But I'm sure whatever God directs you to do, you're going to do it. And
Absolutely, absolutely,
you're going to do it. So, uh,
absolutely.
what's the date now in September so I can see if I can come for
The concert is September 28th at 6 p.m. at the Alexander Memorial Baptist Church on Crane Highway
okay.
301 in Upper Romero.
Reminds me because I would love to be there for that.
Yeah, I'll send send you the information.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to keep this episode up on my page. I know, like, you know, you say you're not technology savvy, but I'm gonna send it to your daughter so that
Okay.
you all be able to share it with.
Mhm. That's amazing. I so appreciate you asking me to come and talk again. You know, like it's all therapy. It's very therapeutic for me. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I'm
appreciate you.
it has been therapy for so many others. I've been seeing these messages and stuff, so I'll catch up. Everyone who's been sending comments and stuff, if you have a question directly for Kevette, please, you can send it to me. I'll get it to her. You can follow her on Instagram as well. I'll send you all of that information. If someone wants to talk to you directly about their grief, I'll make sure that they have a way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you so much again. You all, this will be still posted on this page. I'm also going to have it posted on the YouTube channel. And if you know someone who would like to come on Trauma to Triumph, who has been through some sort of life trauma, we've talked to people who have been through attempted suicide, drug addicted, um, people. We have had so many different stories on this platform. So if you know of someone, please send them to me. They can submit their story anonymously on my website, which is www.trauma, the number 2, triumphdoc.com. And you can do it via DM, however you want to get the stories to me. I'm taking more, I'm scheduling people through the end of the month and also in September. So let's get these stories out there so that we can heal millions of people through the sharing of our traumatic stories. Thanks again to you, Kevette, for being a
You're very welcome.
tonight's episode, and we will be back next Tuesday, everybody, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank y'all so much. Have a great night, and kiss your grandbaby for me. I love kids.
Have a good one. Thank you again.
Much. Good night, y'all.